No nonsense know-how here, and today's going to be a rapid fire overview on how to replace the rear strut assemblies on this 2012 Subaru Impreza. Should go for quite a few other years too. I'll make sure to drop a link down below for these. You can also use this video if you're going to be just replacing your strut cartridge with maybe an OEM one and keeping your factory spring and mount. However, make sure no matter what you do, there's a reason this sticker is over top. Never ever ever remove this nut without having the spring compressed in a strut compressor like this one you see here, or you can get a cheaper one on Amazon, but a lot of times just getting the whole assembly is the cheaper way to go. If your budget allows though, I do recommend going with an OEM struts. All right, let's jump to it. Drop it a thumbs up or consider subscribing if it helps you. First step is going to be getting the car jacked up and removing the 5 19mm lug nuts. Remove both your rear wheels. Then you're going to come into your trunk and remove anything you have in there, along with those 2 foam pieces that go along the sides here. And sorry about this lighting, camera angle, but on these plastic pieces, you basically pull up on this one to release. I'm trying to do this with one hand. And then you get under here, and the whole thing should pop right off. You have tabs that go all the way around, locking it in, and then on the top, these ones slide up into those top grooves. When you're getting these back on, you just got to be careful that you have all these tabs lined up properly before you go tapping it into place. Otherwise, you're going to bend and break those off. But once that's off, you just 2 14mm nuts on top of these strut studs, and the strut should stay right in place once you remove those. Again, do not ever remove that center nut. Could cause severe injury if you did. Then come underneath, and on both sides you're going to remove the 2 12mm head bolts from your sway bar bushing bracket, and that has a little hook that hooks up top of there, you'll see. So remove this bracket on both sides, and then on the bottom of the strut, a 17mm nut with a bolt going through. Tap that bolt out after you remove it. If it happens to be seized to the bushing in the lower control arm, in the lower part of the strut, then you'll want to look up a separate video on how to remove a bolt from a seized bushing. Usually you can torch them out or cut it with a Sawzall, but it can be a real pain if that happens. So make sure if you have rust to spray everything down with rust penetrant first as well. You can see that the passenger side being all damp like that and leaking. That's why we're replacing these. And once you have all that undone, you should be able to take a pry bar like this right in between the upper control arm and the subframe, pry down, and if you pull down real hard, that gives you enough room to slide the strut out. Now, if you want, you can take these plastic connectors, push tabs off, and pull this inner fender well out, whatever you want to call it, and that'll give you a little bit more space, but I didn't have to do that. And once they're popped out, they quite simply slide right out of there. And that's it. So if you're replacing just the cartridge, then take it over to your strut compressor, compress it, remove the top nut. Obviously, assembly is going to be reverse of removal. You have the option to use the nuts that came with your struts, or if you want to retain the factory nuts, sometimes I like to do that if they seem higher quality. If you had any rust on yours, it's a good idea to rub some grease on the shaft of the lower bolt before you slide it back in and secure it, so that way it doesn't get seized up in the future. But you can see on these Subarus, they actually did like a reduced diameter collar on it, so maybe that helps to leave some room for any corrosion in there in the future. I'm not gonna lie, sliding the aftermarket one in there was a little bit tighter, so definitely removing this plastic cover would be a good idea. I did end up relocating my pry bar to back on the frame behind the upper control arm, basically sitting right there. And then I put this large pipe on the end of it, and I had an assistant pull down on that. I was able to slide it in. Now, if you're doing this by yourself, that might be a little bit tough, so could get crafty and try other options, or remove the bolts from your lower control arm and swing that down out of the way. In case I didn't already mention it, but removing this sway bar, the reason we did that was to be able to get some extra pull on this. Wouldn't be a terrible idea to take this bolt out too. That might actually even give you a little bit more space to pull down. But yeah, make sure you line those studs back up. They go in the hole. Put the 2 14mm nuts on, tighten your lower bolt. Not sure what the specs are. If you want to plug those down in the description, that could help out other people in the future. But if you're not familiar with torque and fasteners, it's definitely a good idea to use a torque wrench. Torque down your wheel, 80 foot-pounds on those. And yeah, again, drop the video a thumbs up if it helped you. Consider checking out the links and buying anything down there, because that supports the channel, or subscribing. And thanks a lot. This has been a rubbish, no nonsense, no how video, and I hope to see you again.